Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see your faces. I'm Karen Hilo, and I just want to welcome you to our chapter's Locals Only series, which if you haven't joined before has been very fun and very informative. And it's just because we're all so darn, we have so many great experts in this group and we get to draft off all the brilliance. I love it. So today I'm grateful to Marsha Freedman, who's joining us today. And she has over 22 years of experience as a trainer for corporate clients, business owners, and CEOs. And she's also a keynote speaker and the director of South Florida Speakers Bureau. She also offers programs in emotional intelligence, and she calls it the SET principle because, as you can imagine, when it comes to speaking, our emotions can tend to get heightened when we're in front of a group. So we might have the greatest idea, the greatest message or program ever created, but our delivery is crucial if we hope to win our audience. Marsha's mission is to empower her clients to become more confident, charismatic, convincing speakers, and she's going to help us develop the mental and physical prowess to get audiences to pay attention and give us the yes that we're after. I'm excited. I'm excited, and I'm going to get my pen ready. So take it away, Marsha.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate the opportunity to be a presenter of such a prestigious group. And please feel free to take notes, ask questions. Either Jimmy or our hostess today will be monitoring the chat. So if you have any questions, that's fine. You'll have my contact information at the end. So if you have any questions, concerns, even complaints, you're welcome to get in touch with me. I'm located in Broward County. If any of you ever want to meet for a cup of coffee, I love one-on-ones. I love to socialize, and I live alone. So it gets me out of the house a little bit more often. All righty, so let me get my screen open, get my PowerPoint, and we're ready to go. All right, everybody see that? Yes, give me a nod. Yes. You can see my screen, great.
Yes.
So I love the term own the room, because you want to be in charge. You want to feel you have total confidence. Everybody is listening. They're hanging on every word you're saying. So a lot of what you'll be hearing today is more oriented for live delivery, but of course we're doing virtual. So I want you, because it's a little bit different, of course, and I'll be covering that, but a lot of the techniques are similar because we'll be talking about what goes on up here. That's the most important thing. It doesn't matter whether you're speaking virtually or live, you need to control what goes on up here. So 3 sections I'll be sharing with you today. First is managing your emotions. So we're all faced constantly in life, myself included, of course, with challenging situations and difficult people. You know, wouldn't it be great if everybody was just perfect? They sat and listened, never asked a question, of course, to challenge anything we said, but stuff happens. Stuff happens, the computer crashes, right? Someone asks you a question you didn't anticipate as much as you prepared, and we have to be able to manage our emotions in those situations. Next is, how do you harness your energy before the presentation? So if you're presenting at 11, what are you doing from the time that you got up that morning until 11 o'clock? That could have an impact on how your presentation goes. And then lastly, we'll see how the time goes, talking about your body language. And that, of course, is very different virtually, but your vocals are going to be the same. But the gestures, obviously, I can't open up my arms super wide. You're not going to see my hands, right, on the camera. So we have those obvious differences. All right, we think we're really modern, right? We've got AI, we've got Chat GPT, and even holograms are coming out, right? So we're modern, we think we're evolved, but guess what? Most of the way we perceive the world, the language we use, the actions we take are based on our primitive wiring, but nobody ever teaches us that, okay? So I'm going to give you a primer on how the brain works. And this is useful in all kinds of situations, but especially before you're speaking, you need to understand this. So the emotional brain, the limbic system, this was formed early on in human evolution. So this part of the brain we've had forever, right? So the limbic system, its main job is to keep you alive, to keep you safe. So primitive man walking the plains only had to think about finding food, fornication, and if coming upon someone he or she didn't know, deciding whether to fight or to flee. The emotional brain loves pleasure. That's why we're so addicted to these things over here. Oh, a ding. Oh, maybe somebody liked my post on LinkedIn, right? So in the brain now, the pleasure sensor, the reward sensor fires. So we can become addicted to that. So if something's pleasurable to do, hey, we're eager to do it. But if it's painful, boy, oh boy, we probably procrastinate. So think about a time you had to put a presentation together. Okay, raise your hand if you ever procrastinated doing it. Be honest. I see a lot of hands going, and typically just about everybody in my audience does that. You probably procrastinated it because you didn't find it pleasurable. You said, oh, this is going to be a lot of work. Oh, I have all these other things I need to do. Chances are you put it off with the last minute, and then you might have become very religious. What do I mean by that? Please, God, get me through this. I promise if you help me this time, I'll never wait for the last minute again. Well, that's not a good time to find religion. So what I say to people, and certainly I can cover this in another workshop, is if I offered you a template to help you get started day one, let's say you had 2 weeks notice, and day one, all you had to do is spend 5 or 10 minutes to get the foundation ready. Would you do that? Everybody nod, right? You probably would do it. And then that would bring you pleasure. So again, we avoid things that are painful or that we perceive as painful. We move towards things that give us pleasure. The emotional brain likes things that are easy, not things that are hard. So I'm sure as coaches, you understand that when you're presenting a new idea or a concept to a client, if it's too confusing, and a lot of people may not even show it on their faces, they're probably not going to do that. I've sat through enough seminars and workshops that may have even sounded pretty good while I was attending, but I ended up not doing it because it was too much work, too many formulas, acronyms I had to remember. It wasn't end up being practical. So everything I share with my clients has to be easy. You can apply it immediately. It makes sense. We like things that are simple, that make sense. If you are proposing a change, and often, we are, it has to be something gradual. The brain does not like sudden change unless our life depends upon it, right? So gradual, that means we discuss the problems with the previous software program as an example. We explain the benefits to the new program, and then we offer ongoing training or mentoring to help people ease into that, because people are thinking, change? Oh my gosh, what if I can't adapt to it? What if I look stupid? I might lose my job. Oh my God, then I can't pay my mortgage. So that's how the emotional brain starts freaking out. But when we make it a gradual process and we sell the benefits of how much better life will be, as an example, this software program will probably shorten your workday. You'll get done much faster than you do now. How does that sound? Wow. Pleasure, pleasure. The takeaway from this part of the brain is we feel before we think. We feel before we think. And that explains a lot of our not so great behaviors. I want everybody to think of a time that they said or did something, look back and said, oh my gosh, who was that? I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did that. It's because you only allowed your brain to process it through the primitive part of the brain, the emotions. And we often make a lot of decisions based on emotion, not logic. Think about a relationship you might have been in, right? The emotions are saying, oh my gosh, this person's so wonderful, so charming, so handsome, or so beautiful. Oh, person makes me laugh, right? We're not so much listening to the logical brain that's saying all these other things about the person. Gee, they haven't kept a job too long. They're still living with their mom, right? The emotional brain, we're processing things emotionally. So we have to just be aware of this, okay? So we have this part of the brain. It's a primitive part of the brain, and please be aware of that. Now, the information you're hearing, by the way, in the brain was not in any one source. Over a couple of years, I read a lot of books on the brain, and I started to put the pieces together like a detective. So what you're hearing now is part of a trademark program that I created to help originally just to help my clients who are delivering speeches, but it's expanded to a lot more than that. Now, the emotional brain, you can see by the arrow, is in the dead center of the brain. All right, so a different place from the next part, which I call the logical brain. You will often hear it referred to as the executive brain, the thinking part of the brain. The technical term is the prefrontal cortex, PFC, not to be confused with KFC. Okay, so a little bit of humor there, right? All right, because we like to laugh. Now look where that is. It's behind the left part of the forehead, so you don't want to bang your head against anything because you're going to impact that. This is the more modern part of the brain, and they say it's still evolving. And this is the part that in young males is not fully developed. They say to about age 25. That's why it appears to be, no offense to the gentleman here, that young males tend to have more car accidents, seem to be involved in more crimes than typically females, because this part of the brain takes a little bit longer for it to develop. Now, this part of the brain is very small. Imagine this little tiny part of the brain, 4% of the brain. But it takes a lot of resources. It's very energy hungry. I don't know about you guys, but I love metaphors. And my metaphor for the prefrontal cortex is like your gas tank. Keep it as close to full at all times as possible. So remember when the gas prices went up dramatically from $2 to $3, and we were all lining up to make sure we filled up our tanks before the price went up again, right? So keep it as close to full as possible. This part of the brain is super important for modern men and women as we are now, because we often have to solve complex problems, make decisions, and control our impulses. So otherwise, the world would really be a crazy place if every time somebody said something we didn't like, we're just punching them out. So we have to control our impulses, especially behind the wheel, folks. It helps us think creatively. When you're asked a tough question, you need this part of the brain to go boop, 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 to help you come up with the answer. In my profession, I work with people of all different fields. So as an example, for years, I did a monthly workshop at Next Era, FPL, the corporate headquarters. I get people from all the different business units, and they'd often ask me questions that were really out of my area of expertise, but boop, 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 boop. I think creatively and often came up with a great solution. But if I start to freak out, this part of the brain would not be operational. So again, this is the more modern part of the brain in human evolution and still evolving. So the takeaway from this part of the brain is if you let the emotions take over, it will shut down or deplete the resources available in the prefrontal cortex. So again, years ago, none of this was in any one book. I picked up bits and pieces, started to put together. And then as a problem solver, I said, wait a minute, there's a problem here. Because you have less than a 2-second window to veto the emotions from taking over. So when a person yelled out some difficult, obnoxious, off-centered question, you have a very short window of time to veto it from sabotaging this part of the brain and depleting it. So if you're in a situation where someone said something like that challenging to you, and you felt yourself shaking, maybe sweating, and all of a sudden you couldn't think, it's like, Dean, where are you? Hello? Anything up there? It's because you let the emotions sabotage the logical part of the brain. So how many of you agree we need a solution, right? We need a solution. Well, Marsha Freedman came to the rescue, and I came up with a solution. It's called the SET principle. So at the moment you're faced with that challenging situation, the computer crashes in the middle of a presentation. It's probably happened to everybody. Happened to me once in front of medical faculty at Nova in a big lecture hall, computer crash, right? And also they said about 20 docs will come in. They'll be on one side of the lecture hall. And about 70 of them came in. It's amazing what people will do for a free slice of pizza, right? Filled up the entire lecture hall. And I had to use the SET principle to keep cool because stuff changed. So SET stands for stop, emotions down, thinking up. So everybody do that nonverbal signal with me. It's a little bit hard on the little camera. Let's all do the stop, 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 stop. Emotions down, So with the right hand, I'm doing both of those. And then the other hand, thinking up, thinking up. So now we remind ourselves, I'm not giving into the emotions. No way, Jose. I'm going to go to the prefrontal cortex where I can think calmly. So if somebody is very angry, what the heck do you know about this? Who are you to talk about it? You calm down. You know not to take it personally. That person probably has a lot of issues going on in their head. Maybe they never get attention at home. Now they have an opportunity. So then you can calmly say, well, I appreciate your mentioning that to me. I see you feel very strongly about it. What can I do to help? And then that person sees that you're not against them, then they kind of calm down and then perhaps can answer or speak to you calmly. Okay, we can use it behind the wheel. The great part about this program is it's not just for public speaking. So it was originally designed that, but as it turned out, I became friendly with my trademark attorney. I'd gone to trademark my company name, Express Yourself Communications, changing the world one presentation at a time. So at the time, the set principle, that didn't exist, but the term stop emotions down, thinking up did. And I mentioned it to her, and then her jaw dropped, and she said, do you know what you have there? I said, well, what? What do you mean? I've been using those words for years. She said, you know, there are a whole lot of people out there who may never give a speech, but they're in professions where they can really use it. You need to trademark that. So at this point, I'm thinking, oh, great, another $1,000, you know? And then I realized if other people use it, let me make a standalone program. So what you're seeing is just a very condensed version of it. My program, it can be for customer service, sales account managers, anybody in life, because it not only helps you at work deal with challenges, at home, because you are a conglomeration of emotions 24/7. They don't just begin and end during the work hours. Behind the wheel, oh my gosh, we're all here in South Florida. I'm in Broward. Can you use this behind the wheel? Big time. I use it all the time because every day I say, OMG, that's another first. So cutting across 3 lanes and making a left turn, going through the red light, I need to use it so that I don't get upset and angry and I arrive home alive. So again, this is a trademark program. So I'm happy for you to use it for yourself, but if you want to use it with clients, please get in touch with me and we'll work something out. I am going to start a certification program in this. All right, it could be used in the schools. It could even help you get a better night's sleep. Because when you think about it, if you're not managing your emotions well during the day, how many of you can relate to that, right? You can't fall asleep at night, you're tossing and turning. And then when you wake up the next day, you feel awful. And do you know that when you're sleeping, the brain clears out the toxins from the brain? And they're guessing now that that could be one of the contributing factors to Alzheimer's is people not getting a good night's sleep. The brain's toxins are not clearing out. Did you know that the Space Challenger explosion in 1986, one of the contributing factors was, interestingly, that the NASA managers were severely sleep deprived. So what happens is the impulse control part of the brain is not there. People tend to exhibit riskier behavior. So again, a really cool program. I love delivering it. I've given a keynote address on it. Everybody needs this. Okay, so pop quiz now. Pop quiz. Let's see if you were paying attention. All right, so in the chat, you're going to enter the word, the letter rather, E or L. So which part of the brain, the emotional brain or the logical brain, helps to control impulses? So E for emotional brain, limbic system, L for logical brain, prefrontal cortex. And Jimmy or Karen, just read them out as they come in, because I think we have about 8 or 10 people here. So feel free to call out the letters that you're getting.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. I'm getting L's. All L's.
Okay, you guys are so smart. Yes, the logical brain, again called the executive brain or the prefrontal cortex. Okay, next, which part likes things that are easy and pleasurable? Is it the emotional brain or the logical brain?
Here come the E's. All ease.
Oh my gosh, you guys are brilliant. I've never had an audience that had all correct answers. I shouldn't be surprised. A group of coaches being bright, right? I shouldn't be surprised. But this also serves as a review. All right. Which part's main purpose is to keep you safe and alive? E or L?
I'm getting ease.
Correct. The emotional brain. All right, you guys are on a roll. Okay, drum roll. Which part controls decision making? The emotional brain or the logical brain?
Got crickets.
Okay, guys, don't let me down now. You've done a great job so far. Which one, the E or the L, the emotional brain or the logical brain? Decision making.
I see L's and someone asking if it's possibly both.
Now, this is the logical brain. Decision making is in the logical brain. So that's the part we really have to make sure we don't diminish it in any way. And I'll share with you some ways you can make sure that it doesn't, because we need that fully operational at all times, because it's going to help us in so many situations. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for participating in that. So now that we understand how these two major parts of the brain work and how we could work with it instead of against it using the SIP principle, which can be used 24/7. I also want to share with you some information about our brain chemistry. So again, so much of what happens to us is based on this, but few people understand the brain chemicals. So I want you to increase. You'll see in 3 out of the 4 I will share with you an arrow going up. That means you want to increase it. The dopamine. I used to say to my college students the first day of class, I'm on a high right now. And you see them looking around like, what? And I pause for dramatic effect. I go, do you know what my drug of choice is? Now they're really getting nervous. I go, smiling. When you smile, you release a brain chemical called dopamine. So when I say get your supply of dope, I mean dopamine. It's perfectly legal. It's free of charge, and you have an unlimited supply. So what can you say in your presentations, in your coaching sessions that will increase the happiness quotient? So some examples for me, think about what makes you happy. For me, I love little kids. I love little kids. Whenever I'm out and about, I see families with kids. They're so cute. They smile at you. They throw you kisses. That really makes me very happy. I often see people and I love to give compliments. So I might say, oh, you look amazing in that color. And the person smiles, and now I smile, having made that person happy. So anything that brings us pleasure, makes our life easier, we get a shot of dopamine, right? And just the act of smiling alone, I'm always on a high because I'm always smiling, right? So sometimes you could just change the course of your day by changing your body language, in this case, facial expression. The next is oxytocin, not to be confused with the addictive drug oxycodone, similar spelling. This is the bonding, developing rapport with people. It's called also the cuddle hormone. You get this after having sex, not that you're having sex with your coaching clients or the audience members. That's building rapport. We're working together on that. We're changing the world. We're working together to save the planet, that kind of thing. So think about how you can even increase these two brain chemicals in a presentation, because these are good things. We're making people feel great. If the audience members are turning to each other, maybe having a conversation, that could increase the oxytocin. So the third one, sorry about that, going in the wrong direction, is serotonin. That's the trust hormone. That goes back to our primitive origins. So a primitive man walking the plains, you see somebody you haven't seen before, you have to know by their appearance, their demeanor, whether you can trust them. Primitive man used to travel in packs of 100 to 150 people. It's really important that they trust each other. They develop rapport for survival. And we still are wired the same way. When you meet somebody for the first time, or you see somebody presenting, when you are presenting, the audience wants to know if they can trust you, especially if they're there to make a decision or an investment. So let's say that you are presenting to a big client who may want to bring you in to coach several of their employees. They want to know that they can trust you to do a good job. They're making an investment of time and money. So again, it goes back to our primitive wiring. So these are 3 important brain chemicals that you need to know about for yourself and when you present to others. So we want to increase these 3. Now, the third one, the last one rather, is cortisol. That we want to decrease. That's stress. So we don't want to say anything, whether it's with a coaching client, delivering a presentation, that will make them stress. And then, or create fear, because fear is very primal. That's the #1 emotion that we express as individuals. By the way, we have twice as many negative emotions as positive emotions. So that's just for survival. So we don't want to say anything. So if you're talking about money and it's something, people might not know if they can afford it, or too much of a dramatic change that they feel they won't be able to handle, well, that might increase stress. So we want to avoid that at all costs. We want to reduce the stress level. We want people feel good, feel confident. You're a good match for their team. All right. So now what I'd like you to do is think about those 4 and how can you use that in a presentation? How can you use it with a coaching client? So what can you actually say orally? What can you do? Well, what could you show on a slide that might generate one of these? I don't expect you to think about all of these. So what can you do, say, or show on a slide, let's say, to increase dopamine? You might want to just focus on that. Or what could you say, do, or show on a slide to increase oxytocin, which is the bonding rapport, or serotonin, the trust? Or if you want to pick cortisol, how can you reduce that in your audience members? So I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about that and then put the response back into the chat. And then as they appear, Karen, feel free to read them out loud, or Jimmy, who is ever available. So again, just a simple idea. What could you do to make people feel happy? What could you show them on a slide? That would be the easiest one, I think.
Lily says, your body language matching your message.
Yes, because if I'm talking about something happy and I look like this, I look like I'm miserable, that's not going to be good. So if I'm smiling and I have very positive, open body language, yes, that may make the audience feel very happy and good to be with you. Thank you.
Danny says smiling, and and then she said, someone said or Heather said, put a picture of something happy, and Danny said puppies.
Puppies, if appropriate. So visuals are great because we process the world mainly visually. So happy scenes, definitely, it has to reflect your message. Of course, you don't just pop in a picture of puppies. It has nothing to do with your topic, but happy scenes, definitely people relate to that. So when we talk about a new program, a service, and then you're talking about happy people at work, yes, that could be very effective. Thank you.
And Jason says group collaboration for bonding, which is good for team building.
Absolutely, absolutely. And anytime there's an activity and it serves as a great review, if somebody turns to the next person. When I do a full day presentation skills workshop, so after each section, I actually select people to work together. I give them a few minutes to then give the highlights of what they just heard. So they're reviewing, helping to review the information, but then they put their own spin on it, and sometimes something new comes out of it. So they're working together, and it's always fabulous. Rather than my standing up there and going over the whole thing, they have a chance to chat, and it serves to review, and then they get the compliment that they did a great job. Thank you. Great answers. Anybody else?
Yeah, Lily says videos that bring your message home, connecting a strong visual.
Yes.
And
people love videos. And videos work really well on LinkedIn. You're saying to try to do videos and pictures. So if you just put a post and there's no visual, people aren't as receptive. You won't get as many responses to it.
Danny suggests music.
Wonderful. I love that. Especially if you're doing a live training. So as people are walking in, music that will reflect the mood, something upbeat, right? They can feel like champions. People love music and relate to that. Make sure it's not anything sad or slow or depressing. Now choose the music wisely.
Mhm. And Viviana says, be aware of her thoughts and create positive thoughts.
Yes. So we're going to talk about, thank you for sharing that, Viviana. Hi, I haven't seen you for a while. Great to see you. Is also next week, we'll be talking about what you do with your own energy before you enter the room or get on your virtual platform. Super important. Thank you. I appreciate all the responses. Anything else before I move on? I don't want to leave anybody out. Okay, so next let's move on to what you do before you present. As I mentioned before, let's say at 11 a.m., you have a big presentation to deliver. I want you to feel that when you enter that room, whether it's a live presentation or virtual, you have 95% control, right? So that's the whole idea of owning the room. When I say own the room, I want you to feel that you're in charge, you have control, you really feel great. Now, notice I didn't put 100% because I'm a very realistic person. Nothing in life is ever 100%. But if you have that 95%, when stuff happens, you can handle it. So between having the 95% and knowing the set principle, right, those two work well together, you can handle those situations and even have a sense of humor about it. Let's talk about what you can do. The first thing is think about the time in those hours before the 11 a.m. So let's say you're up at 7. You have 4 hours before that presentation. I want you to get involved with things that are low or no stress. Right? So it's not the time to maybe return the phone call of somebody who has some kind of a complaint, right? Not the time to call up Comcast about your bill and argue about that they're overcharging you as an example, right? So low to no stress. You could do meditation. I know some of you in the group are probably into meditation. Great. Great. Next is upbeat music. We already mentioned the huge value of music. So you want it to be upbeat, something maybe you want to dance to even before you go in. It's not the time to listen to sad music like Adele, who's a great singer, but her music, I find at least, kind of sad and slow and depressing, right? So if you're feeling sorry for yourself, not that I want you to do that, that's not the kind of music I suggest. So upbeat. I love Latin music. I do Zumbas. I love Latin music. It's always happy and it's fast moving. So your body reacts to that in a very positive way. Puts you in a great mood. It really does. Next is a silent primal scream. And this is going to be a little challenging, but you see the figure here of that. So what you do in a silent primal scream, and never do this in front of your audience, by the way. You do this if you're presenting live, we go to the restroom or ends of a hallway where nobody will see you. And what you're going to do is you're going to stand, spread your legs about hip width apart. You're going to put your arms way up in the air, as you see in the figure, and imagine that all the stress is tied up in your belly, and you really want to move it out. And the metaphor for this is kind of like, did you ever have a lot of hair caught in a drain and you put the snake in that little tool and you pull out all this gook, right? You're getting rid of it. Same thing metaphorically speaking here. Anything negative, any stress, any nervousness. As an example, maybe it's a much bigger audience than you've ever presented to before, then you're kind of tied up in knots. So I'm going to do it modestly off, of course, because we're doing it virtually. You're going to close your eyes, you're going to open your mouth, but you're not going to scream. That's why it says silent primal scream, because we don't want anybody to call 911. So you'd go, right? So the idea is to do it standing up. If you guys feel like doing that in your home office right now, that'd be great. You're going to stand and you're going to count to 3 and go. So you're really just letting out all that negativity. So when I do this live with a group of people, then they look around and everybody's smiling. So that's good. They release the negativity and they're laughing. They're releasing dopamine and oxytocin because they're bonding with the other people who've done the same thing. So years ago, I did the silent primal scream with a group at Styles Construction Company. And one person said, wouldn't it be funny if a bunch of us were in the restroom and from the top of the stall, we saw all these fingers, hands going up in the air. So that's quite a visual. I still remember that because it's visual. You remember visual. I did this technique many years ago before I labeled it. I was in a contest. It was impromptu speaking from Toastmasters. So early on, that's how I got my start many years ago. And I was in an impromptu speech contest, which is very nerve-wracking because everyone gets the same topic, but you haven't heard the other speakers. I drew the last position. So here's each person went out. I'm getting more and more nervous, but intuitively, again, many years ago, like 30 years ago, before I was even in this field, I said, this isn't going to help. How will I be able to think quickly on my feet? So I started doing a dance, and then I did the silent primal scream. I didn't know it was a silent primal scream at the time. And I felt great. And I went out there and I won the contest. Okay. And the topic was things don't appear the way they seem. And I actually talked about what I did and my technique for relaxing. So this is a fun technique. You can even use it if you're on the highway and stuck in traffic, before you go home and kick the dog or scream at your significant other, right? Go like that outside your car, all right? And if the neighbors are watching you, that's okay. Have them come over and say, what were you doing? And teach them the silent primal scream. Comes in handy a lot of times. Next, we want you to use visualization, scientifically proven to work. So let's use the example of in-person presentation. So hopefully you've learned about your audience, you know about the room, which is very important that you're going to be presenting in. And then you get to picture yourself going through the entire presentation. And of course, you picture the audience nodding, smiling, clapping. This has been scientifically proven to work. Master performers in all fields use this technique. The same part of the brain that sees and hears actually visualizes. So the brain does not know the difference between reality and what you've programmed to be reality. A great anecdote that I read in a book recently, I think it was Primal Leadership. They spoke about an Olympic diver who broke 3 of her toes. So she really couldn't practice the dives. However, she went to the pool every day, sat on the diving board, closed her eyes and visualized herself going through the dives. And she ended up winning an Olympic gold medal. That's how powerful this is. It's amazing considering the power we have up here that we're really not taught classes in this. Oh, maybe I'll start doing that because all this stuff really is great and I put this together. The next is the power pose. Perhaps some of you have watched the Amy Cuddy video. She's supposedly the guru on it. Truthfully, she doesn't have great body language. So I encourage you to go to her TED Talk. She's a social scientist and she does this great thing and her information is great, but she's kind of hunched over. I'm thinking, wait a minute, you're not walking your walk, lady. Power pose is before you enter the room. So the idea is to hold your shoulders back, put your hands on your hip and hold that for 2 minutes. What ends up happening, and you're welcome to stand up if you feel comfortable enough doing it right now, standing, spread your legs out, put your hands on your hip for 2 minutes, because you're sending the message to the body, to your brain actually, from your body language, that you are powerful. And Amy Cuddy's video cites that they did studies on people and they tested their testosterone level and cortisol level before they did the power pose. So cortisol, as we know, is stress. Testosterone is power. And they found that there was a dramatic increase in testosterone after using power poses and a reduction of cortisol. So power poses are great. Again, watch her video. I just happen, my own personal opinion is, I don't think her body language is that great, but her information is super. So I encourage you to watch that, but keep that in mind. That's my own personal opinion. So if you meet her, don't tell her I said that. A speaker I love is Dan Pink. Watch his videos. I adore that man. All right. Okay, next, enough of my personal opinion in there. All right, great. So now that we have that all set, you've entered the room or you've started the virtual presentation. How long do you think you have to make that positive first impression? Put that number in the chat. How long do you have?
I see 7 seconds, 5 seconds, 7 seconds, 5 seconds.
Okay, we have 35 people on the chat, so I expect to see a few more responses.
4 seconds.
Yes. Only 2. 2 seconds to make that first.
7 seconds, you will make 11 impressions, Lily says.
Okay. So 2 seconds. So, and why is that only 2 seconds? They say, oh my gosh, that's hardly any time at all. It really goes back to survival. Remember I said about primitive man walking the plain? Well, if I'm a primitive man, walking the plain, and I see you, somebody I haven't seen before, in 2 seconds for survival, I need to judge your appearance, your demeanor, and make a quick decision because my life could be at stake. If I make the wrong decision, I could be dead, okay? Or if I'm facing a woolly mammoth, I could be dead. So I need to for survival. So again, even though we're evolved, we're modern, a lot of how we process the world is based on the primitive wiring from the emotional brain. So super important. Now, the good thing is if you make a positive impression, once people have made their mind up, they're not likely to change. How cool is that? We know this, unfortunately, from politics, right? We all have friends who perhaps think differently, and there's no changing anybody's mind, so it seems. Once your mind is made up, people are afraid to change. And this again goes back to the primitive wiring. We do not like change. So let's make this work in our favor. So this gets to how do you make a positive first impression? It's by having the opening comments down pat. If it's a formal presentation, your opening statement, your intro, you have to have that memorized. You can't be flubbing. You can't be turning no pages and looking through it. And, oh, I'm sorry. Is everybody ready? Good morning. No. You need to have this totally professional because that's when people will make up their minds. So the first few seconds, and then I feel, my opinion is, based on my 23 years of experience, at the ends of the intro, they're making another decision. Right? So at this point, if they like you, guess what happens the rest of the presentation? They're going to judge you more favorably. Think about a person you went out on a date with. Some of you have been married a long time. You have to go way back in your memory bank like Jimmy. All right. Now, you really like this person. But, they have some little negative things over there, right? But you like them so much, you tend to not notice that stuff, right? He's perfect, right? So let's go with that. Once people have made up their mind, they do not want to change, and it has to do with primitive wiring, plus the fact that I don't want to feel that I made a poor choice or a bad decision. Get that? So positive first impression, chances they'll say, oh, great. They'll tend to overlook the little mistakes. Now, if for some reason the opening doesn't go well, doesn't mean that's it, just walk away. It means you'll have a little bit of a harder struggle to try to win them back. Okay? So we have to go with what's going on up here in our own minds and in our audience's minds as well. This is human nature, folks. Let's use it to our advantage, right? Okay, another pop quiz. How long do you have to make a positive first impression? That should be super easy now. Everybody should have the right answer for that. I see more and more people coming on now. Wish you guys were here earlier. So much great information.
2 seconds. 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
2 seconds. It's a very short period of time, but now you know why. For survival, we have to judge quickly. So it's not like the audience members now are afraid that somebody's going to kill them, like get killed by a woolly mammoth, but we still have that primitive brain. So we need to know that and use it to our advantage. Okay, great. Which of these shouldn't you do before you're delivering a pitch or a presentation? A, call your best friend. B, return the call from a disgruntled client. Or C, listen to your favorite music. Which one shouldn't you do? A, B, or C?
B.
You guys are so smart. Yes. We don't want to do anything that will diminish the prefrontal cortex's energy supply. It's very fragile. By the way, having a sugary drink before a presentation can help to replace a little bit of it. But it's best to keep it fully intact because we really, really need it. It comes in handy in those trying moments. It really does. I was once presenting to a group at the Tower Club, Fort Lauderdale. Some of you are familiar with it. So I got there an hour early to set up, and I was a member of the club and been there a zillion times. So a window washer up here. Going, window washer? I've never seen one, but I'm glad he's here now instead of when I present. Wrong. In the middle of my presentation, he reappeared and 30 sets of eyes went from me to the window washer, back to me. I had to use my energy properly. I had to use the set principle to keep my cool, right? So stuff happens, guys, that we'd never in a million years anticipate. When I was done, one of the attendees said, I've been a member here for 48 years. I've never seen a window washer before. So that's the story of my life. If something unusual can happen, it happens to me. Yes, absolutely. All right, so keep that energy intact. Fun stuff. Speak to your mom because she'll say, honey, you'll do a great job, right? Most of us moms are very encouraging. If she's a critical mom, no. All right. Any questions? Any questions about any of the stuff? Because hopefully it was easy to understand. It makes sense. Maybe new. Hopefully it makes a lot of sense. And I love this stuff because it's fun and it's great and everybody usually loves it. So hopefully give me a thumbs up if you're enjoying what you're hearing so far. All right, terrific. Glad to hear that. All right, so we have a few minutes left. I will talk a little bit about your nonverbal communication because what you don't say actually speaks louder than what you do say. This again goes back to our primitive origins. Man didn't have words till 50,000 years ago. We've been around a lot longer than that. So we would judge by the appearance and the demeanor, not by words. So that's actually the way we judge people the lowest is based on the words. It's really the nonverbals, the body language, and the vocals. Okay, so we'll break that down a little bit. So what's cool about body language is you can exude warmth, power, and presence, which are the three elements of charisma. How many of you would like to be more charismatic? Can I see some hands? Yeah, okay. Warmth, power, and presence are all exuded through body language. A great book on this is The Charisma Myth. The Charisma Myth by Olivia Caban. And great book. Every page is chock full of great information. I usually use it with all my coaching clients. So really simple. In other words, when you're standing out confidently, right, and you have some appropriate gestures and eye contact, you seem to be very warm and powerful. So even people who are introverts can appear to be more charismatic just by their body language alone. How cool is that? In 2 seconds, again, body language is being judged. Now, here's the other advantage of it. Let's say you're not having a great day. Just by opening your arms up, just by smiling, you're actually sending the message from the body language to the brain that you are feeling good. So it works both ways. So let me review that. Your mental state should result in positive body language, such as smiling, good posture. However, it can work in the reverse. You, the body language, it will send the signal to your mind. So the mind and body, as we know, are closely related. How cool is that? Now, eye contact is super important, especially if you're trying to persuade people. Because if you're looking away after you've asked, say, for the sale, that gives them the impression you didn't really mean it. So eye contact is super important. You don't want to be fluttering the eyes around the room like that. Hold it with one person for a few sentences, then slowly move your eyes. Obviously, virtually, I'm looking right below my camera right now. Okay, next is avoid turning your back. If you are presenting live, think about which side of the screen you want to stand on so you can avoid turning your back. Imagine you're naked back here, right? So I want to stand, if I'm a righty, I want to stand on the other side of the screen. If the screen's in the middle, the other side, so I have to turn my back too much. So when I say that to people, it's very visual. Imagine you are naked, you don't want anybody seeing your rear end. So think about the position. So when you get there early to set up, it's something to think about. Next is you want to use open gestures. Again, this is a little difficult virtually, but in the real world, when you're presenting live, when you can open up your arms in a gesture, it shows you're more confident. When you move your arms away from the side of the body, it shows power, right? So smaller in too close shows weakness, opening up shows power. So this is something you would need to rehearse beforehand, because we never want to try anything new live, right? Remember, the brain does not like something new. You have to be practicing this all the time. So standing in front of the mirror, recording yourself in the video camera, do it in front of friends and family, you get to practice. And every day, I would suggest you work on your body language. So if you tend to not be a person who smiles a lot, guess what? Start smiling a little bit more every day. When you lean in, especially effective if you're sitting around a conference table, you're in the front, and if everybody's seated, leaning in shows you're listening and shows empathy. And then for posture, I suggest you start thinking about being 1 inch taller than you are. So if I'm 5'8", I really want to be 5'9". So everybody think about how you're sitting right now. Push your shoulders back, everybody. So even when you're presenting virtually, as I am now, you want to be putting the shoulders back because it exudes more confidence. And you'll feel more confident. So when we're presenting virtually, then of course it's the camera angle, which you normally get on a few minutes early and make sure that's set up. Your appearance, I have we're looking office background, so I have a green screen. I have my logo up there, so I don't have to worry about you're seeing my messy office. And then of course we test out the lighting, which I did with Karen early on. And your personal appearance. Some people today, I find personally, this is my own opinion, are way too casual. I think it's nice to be dressed one level above your audience. Doesn't mean you put on a tuxedo. But if most people are wearing hoodies, I don't think you as the presenter should be wearing a hoodie. I'm sorry. I think a collared shirt is one level above that without being too formal, right? So again, it depends on the audience as well. So upright posture. And when you smile, makes your voice sound actually more energetic as well, right? So you can have some gestures, like the first point I want to make, the pros and the cons. It's a little bit more restrictive. We just don't want to be waving our hands. I've seen some people doing this on camera, right? And my fan favorite, I wish I had a drum roll for this, what people have told me they love the most in the nonverbals is this: pause, scan, and nod. Now, here's when you use this technique, and I did not design this. I have to give credit to Bill Gove, who was the first president of the National Speakers Association. I had the pleasure of meeting him many years ago, and he gave us this technique. So here's the deal. When you call for action, or you're asking for something, and let's say there are 8 people in the room, but the decision maker, you're going to deliver that statement to that decision maker, but then you pause, you scan the rest of the room and nod. Because what you're doing is you're reinforcing it with other people. If you just look at that one person, that means the rest of you don't count. And we know often the decision maker is influenced by the other people that may be on his or her team. Now, I did this recently with some of the founders at the Levan Center of Innovation, and one of them has a home shopping channel. She said she uses this on her home shopping channel after she makes an important point. So again, you could do it with a virtual audience or with a live audience, right? So really, really, really cool. Pause, scan, and nod. You have to rehearse using that because it will seem like a long time. It'll be a fraction of a second. But if you don't rehearse doing that, it might not come off naturally. So as you rehearse, do that. Pause, scan, and nod. Pause, scan, and nod. So I think in the interest of time, Karen, where are we up to? Because my timer went off. How many more minutes do we have?
We are at 1:26, a couple more minutes.
Okay, so we're going to skip the vocals then. It's just important to practice and rehearse and record yourself and find the areas you really need improvement. It may be slowing down. It may be pausing between words. Maybe you need to have a more expressive voice. Understand that when you emphasize certain words, it changes the meaning of it. So if I say, please sign this application, it has a totally different meaning than please sign this application or please sign this application. So there's so much we can do with our voice to make it an instrument of influence. So I'd like to hear about your top takeaways. So write those in the chat. What are the things that you got out of the presentation? And while you're doing that, I will put up my screen for my contact information. So what are the things you remember the most of this presentation? So if you run into somebody else who couldn't attend, they said, hey, you know, what was that presentation like? What did you really learn? What would be the top things you would tell that person?
I created kind of a checklist of things. I do a lot of speaking, but there's always opportunity to improve. So I thought I'd make a list as you were talking of some things. So you said, visualize your success,
Mhm.
do some kind of, you said a primal silent scream,
Right.
play upbeat music to increase my energy, reduce stress, increase trust, think in terms of bonding with people and increase happiness, and be well rested, and create a low stress period before the presentation. And I also wrote to be well fed.
Yes,
I,
yes, you don't have a growling stomach to have low energy.
I can't, yeah, it just contributes to my
Absolutely.
energy levels.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's hear from maybe one more person.
Yep. So Jason put in brain chemistry, owning the room, 95% control of the presentation, and that pause, scan, and nod is a powerful technique. And Viviana said visualization and the chemistry was important to her.
Great, great, great. So in the interest of time, I just want to make sure that you have my contact information, take a picture if you want to. So if you have any questions about anything in the presentation, feel free to contact me. I work with a lot of people crafting their message, dealing with their insecurities. Every situation is different. Coaching one-on-one, I do group workshops on that and help people often with their PowerPoint, because most PowerPoint presentations, I'm sorry to say, are not very effective. They're often written by people who aren't delivering the presentation. So feel free to reach out, email me. I am on LinkedIn under Express Yourself Communications. And I do want to mention the SET principle is a trademark program. So you're welcome to use the teachings from it on your own. But if you're interested in being certified in this, I will be starting a certification program shortly or sharing that with some of your clients. Please make sure that you contact me and I'd be happy to work with you on that. So any other questions? Any other questions? I see we have up to 55 people. Where are all those people early on? But it's recorded. So hopefully.
Hey, I just wanted to say that, first of all, I wanted to thank you, Marsha. Obviously, your passion for communicating well and effectively is pouring out. So thank you for your time and your thoughtfulness about the presentation. Really appreciate that. Thank you all who joined. I'm sure if you're used to presenting or speaking, you probably got a few, if not more than a few things out of this to enhance how you perform when you give those presentations. And hopefully that gets you, you're feeling more confident, more convincing, and have more charisma when you make your next presentation. This locals only happens every second Tuesday of the month, and we're scheduled all the way through the end of the year. And if you have missed some presentations, they're available on YouTube. And also we have Fiorella Velarde doing the presentation next month on July 11th. So hope we see you then. Getting some comments here, Marsha, just thanking you, and that it was a great presentation. And someone else said, the one I needed the most, remember to manage my emotionals, the triggers in your brain before you say something. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. I'm glad we had such a great turnout.
Yeah. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking the survey. Bye.